What did our ancestors eat? Wild roots, hard tubers, and raw meat, blood, mud, dirt. It was a primitive menu with enough destructive power to completely shatter our fragile modern tooth enamel. Imagine a lavish Thanksgiving feast, but the version from a few million years ago. On the table is a bleeding, unplucked turkey, potatoes caked in thick mud, and wild corn as hard as rocks. No fire, no seasoning. Chew and swallow. So, what happens when a species, hardwired by nature with survival software designed to process tough, raw foods, suddenly wields the power of fire? This collision didn't result in a smooth evolutionary transition. It created a glitch in our biological system. Science calls this concept evolutionary mismatch, and that is precisely the perfect explanation for why, at 2 in the morning, your subconscious screams at you to rip open a bag of Doritos instead of settling for a raw carrot. Rewind. 3 to 4 million years ago, the era of the Australopithecus hominids. Microscopic scratches and carbon isotopes trapped in ancient fossilized teeth tell us a brutal story. Our ancestors' daily menu back then wasn't a culinary experience. It was an endurance test for the jaw against a chaotic mix of tough fibers, roots, and hard shells. And here lies a disastrous economic equation of survival. We dug up a wild tuber with our bare hands, we chewed, we swallowed, but the body only retained 30% of the energy, 70% wasted. It slipped right through the digestive tract simply because the stomach was utterly powerless against the impenetrable cellulose walls of raw plants. To compensate for that horrific energy leak, our bodies were forced into an extreme biological redesign. A massive intestinal tract, 3 times the size of a modern human's, crammed into a protruding belly, serving as nothing more than a fermentation factory to break down a pile of tough, fibrous roots. And the price? Brain volume was severely restricted. It was only a third of what it is today, barely the size of a grapefruit. Small brain, big gut. In that world, time wasn't measured in hours or minutes. It was counted by the grinding of jaws. Our primate relatives and our ancestors themselves were condemned to chew for 6 to 8 hours every single day. Just imagine, your entire 8-hour office shift today, our ancestors spent that exact amount of time just to chew a handful of leaves. No enjoyment. Going back to the very beginning, eating was never a reward. It was exhausting, grueling physical labor that drained all your energy with no end in sight. 1 million years ago, a spark ignited. The first fire lit by Homo erectus wasn't just to ward off wild beasts or provide warmth on a winter night. Through the lens of evolution, fire was a breakthrough technology. It was, in essence, an artificial stomach, located outside the body. The heat of the fire took over the duties of the jaw. It broke down fortified fibrous walls into pulp and melted locked-away starches into an easily absorbable feast of energy. Our caloric intake skyrocketed. Fast, explosive, effortless. Our biological bodies immediately recognized this economic bargain and began a radical overhaul. No longer needing a giant compost factory to digest raw food, the intestinal tract rapidly shrank. The massive, rock-crushing jaw was allowed to retire, reducing in size. The aggressive, protruding face flattened out, making way for a more refined appearance. But the real magic lay in the surplus energy. When the body no longer had to exhaust itself chewing and digesting, all that accumulated capital was funneled straight to the top. Our skulls expanded. From the cramped confines of a grapefruit, it grew into a massive data center. And time. Suddenly, we had a surplus of 7 hours every day. For the first time in the history of survival, humans didn't have to bury their faces in the bushes, chewing mechanically from dawn to dusk. Those 7 free hours were the most precious window of time evolution had ever granted us. We used it to sharpen stones, craft spearheads, sit around the fire, communicate, tell stories, and human civilization was conceived from those very moments of leisure. The brain we are using to comprehend these words is a ruthless, energy-guzzling machine. It weighs barely a few pounds, yet it devours a fifth of the body's entire fuel supply. And the exorbitant bill for that luxury has been, and continues to be, paid in full by cooked meals. Millions of years, locked tight. For millions of years wandering the arid savannas, our brains were programmed into incredibly conservative survival machines. They were deadlocked into a single mode, a frantic craving for anything soft, intensely sweet, and dripping with fat. That wasn't undisciplined gluttony, It was a hoarding instinct designed to keep our species from freezing to death when the brutal winter hit. But everything fell out of sync. Our biological machine needed millions of years to move just a few tiny notches on the evolutionary scale. Meanwhile, the food industry took less than a century to trigger an explosive mutation. This time, gap created a chasm. What you are confronting in the supermarket today, fluffy industrial white bread, burgers drenched in sauce, or crunchy bags of snacks, is actually the most extreme and ruthless iteration of cooking. They are energy bombs stripped entirely of their protective fiber armor. They are meticulously designed by food engineers to do one thing only: melt right on the tip of your tongue. No chewing, zero resistance. This is a deadly paradox. You expend a mere 2 calories of effort on a gentle smack of the lips, yet you pump 500 calories straight into your bloodstream. Your Stone Age brain bursts with joy. It cheers in celebration, absolutely convinced that you've just struck an energy goldmine in the unforgiving wilderness. It is completely oblivious to the fact that the bodily machine carrying it is drowning in a catastrophe of obesity and diabetes, permanently anchored in front of a computer screen for 8 hours a day. The goldmine of the past is the poison of the present. Our ancestors once shattered their tooth enamel and suffered bleeding gums, all in the desperate craving for a single morsel of soft food. And us? In the 21st century, we are swiping our cards to pay nutritionists just to learn how to swallow tough, whole grains all over again. We are forcing ourselves to learn how to eat roughage, learning how to chew from scratch, a cycle full of irony, but stop tormenting yourself. When you madly crave a grease-soaked bite of food, it is absolutely not a sign of weakness or a lack of discipline. It is nature's original design. Unlike every other species on this planet, humans are innately creatures of cooked food. It is not your fault. However, you do have a choice. Next time, when you stand dazed beneath the neon lights of a fast food joint at the crack of dawn, when your primal urge demands to devour those ultra-processed traps, remember the exorbitant price of evolution. Pause. Awaken your massive prefrontal cortex. That is your supreme center of logic, paid for by the sacred flame and millions of years of our ancestors' free time. Use that magnificent mind to override your ancient survival software and decide for yourself. Refuse.
No.
Thank you for staying with us until the very final moments of this video to truly understand a familiar hunger. Before we wrap up, we would love to know, what is the one food that always tempts your stomach in the middle of the night? Leave a comment below to see how many people share your craving. If you enjoyed today's content, please support our team by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Your ongoing support is the most powerful fuel for us to continue igniting new flames of knowledge. See you at our next point of connection.